You would have loved it, Carol. You would have.
I know I would have.
Good morning, Baltimore.
I would have joined you.
Yes, you would have.
Oh, good morning and welcome into Wingin' It Wednesday. Our panelists, Carol Ross and Warren Caudle, getting settled in. How are you guys?
Good morning.
Fine, you.
You survived your Super Bowl parties, Warren?
OMG, that was a great Super Bowl. I'm sorry, I loved it. I didn't really pay attention to the first three quarters, but that last quarter, that's all I needed to see was that last quarter.
You know,
and halftime. Gaga knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, I'll tell you, the TV guy in me, after it started, I was completely distracted the whole time trying to figure out what process would have had to happen to make it look like she was singing on top of the stage, but she wasn't really because the drones were really there.
Yeah.
And then it was just a very, very cleverly done pre-tape
done.
Where, you know what, when you look that crazy.
It was seamless.
Let me tell you, if you film me looking like I do today, and then you want me to blend in with what I look like tomorrow, it's not going to match. I might wear contacts. I'll probably wear an iron shirt. It's seamless. It was cool.
It was amazing.
All right, so
and I didn't really care about the technical stuff.
No,
because it was just so entertaining.
You know, go ahead, Warren.
One of my Facebook friends who is from Atlanta, and she was a huge Hillary fan, a big socialist. She puts on Facebook after that. She says, "Can it get any worse? First the election and then this." And so I'm thinking all the way. I'm having these flashbacks to the election during the first half, and all I can think about. Is there a path for victory for the Patriots?
Yes. Yeah.
Can they find a path for victory? Now, if they can move the ball, will they find a path to victory? So at halftime, I just sort of quit watching because I was watching it streaming on the computer, and I was doing something else. Of course, it was in the background. I had it muted, and I flipped over there, and it was just the start of the fourth quarter.
Wow!
So I said, "Good job, Warren."
So I have one neurosurgeon friend. Everyone needs one. He lives in Atlanta. And the next morning he said, took me a little bit longer to do my rounds this morning. Apparently, and he's from Carolina. He's a Panthers fan. He said apparently everyone's having a little hard time rising up this morning. Yeah. You know? Oh gosh. All right. So I had on my list first. I wanted to talk about, immigration latest, kind of where we are. Yesterday there was this interesting. I have never seen this happen. When the Ninth Circuit started hearing arguments about this, they were doing it over a conference call.
Audio.
And then they were streaming it live, so you were hearing it. Yeah. Let me tell you, Bernie and I get way more accomplished when we talk on the phone than what happened yesterday. It just seemed like huge delays, like they were on a 1984 phone system or something.
Probably were.
They might have been from wherever it happened. Carol, where are we now? What do you think the future of this executive order is?
Well, we should all be very afraid. We're in the hands of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, and, there's no telling where these guys are going to go. I thought they would take this up because this is such an important thing en banc. I thought the whole Ninth Circuit would do it, but haven't seen, any indication of that yet. The president, if anybody who's been watching the news, and the KPEL listeners are among the smartest in the world, they've seen all the rationale for why the president has broad discretion for doing what he did, and try to call it a Muslim ban is completely ridiculous because there are how many dozens of other Muslim countries that aren't included on this ban. And the rationale is, and it came from the Obama administration, half of them are state sponsors of terrorism. The other half don't even have a functional government that can vet the people in the first place. So the president does have wide discretion. And then they cited, not only constitutionally, but they cited the statute that actually kind of firmed that up back in the 50s. I think that Congress gave this broad discretion to the president. The standing of the states is what I was talking to a judge yesterday. And the standing of the states, they said, is very thin. They're on thin ice in terms of standing. So, but this can go any way at all. And this, of course, adds more drama to the Supreme Court pick that comes up. Now hopefully one of the very liberal justices will actually look at the law for a change instead of ruling as that judge Record did, Ribart or whatever his name is, strictly emotionally. If he had no justification for why he did it except that his emotional rationale.
What do you make of that argument that okay, if we are really trying to stop terrorism, why wouldn't Saudi Arabia be on it? Because that's where all the 9/11
Because Saudi Arabia is cooperating with us.
Okay.
And that was not a state-sponsored, as far as I can tell. There may have been some people in the government who did help that, who did foster that. Mm-hmm. But as far as I can tell, and we have it's a yin-yang thing with the Saudis. And so anyway, supposedly they are sharing intel with us now. They're working with us now. And
so that makes it a little bit different playing field.
I think it does make it a different thing.
All right, Warren, what's your thoughts?
The first thing I think about it is that, this thing is nothing new. We have barred people from coming into this country several times, and we bar them all the time because we have quotas on who can come in from which country. I mean, that is codified in federal law, and that I do believe that Obama signed an executive order which was almost identical to this one in 2011, which he said you can't, no Syrian refugees, no Iraqi refugees, or people can come in from those places, et cetera, et cetera. And so, this is just a continuation of that. What we're looking at is the left-wing dingbats who just got to have something to jump up and down and scream and holler about. And it makes no difference what happens. They're going to scream and holler. I was particularly happy last night when I woke up and the television was on.
You woke up last night?
I woke up in the middle of the night like I usually do. And
me too.
And all right. And welcome.
We should start calling each other.
Welcome to old age.
Don't call me.
So I'm turning around and I see the thing on the Senate where they are debating, and I didn't know if it was live or not, but it said it was live streaming. So anyway, I'm watching, and I didn't really fully comprehend what they were talking about, putting the letter in the file or in the report and blah, blah, blah. And then I heard it all this morning, and my point is, good job, boys, good job. You did, finally somebody stood and said, nope, enough's enough. Let's go on. We're going to move on with this thing,
Yeah.
And the timing was interesting because they kept him in there long enough to vote for Betsy DeVos, and then right after that they took up his
that was great.
Yes. The Republicans are finally acting like winners.
Today they're finally going to vote on Jeff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And they're finally acting like winners instead of always kowtowing and saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, we won this election. I'm sorry, the people gave us this mandate to do all this stuff."
Well, now that's not so, because that if you go back a few years ago, and they said the Republicans were the party of no, and they tried to pass the Affordable Care Act,
and
they said you have to have it's got to be on the website 24 hours before we can vote on it. They said suspend the rules. All in favor, aye. Passed. Rules suspended. Next.
Merry Christmas.
Well, we need to at least read what's in it. We need to. You have to pass it in order to see what's in it.
Okay, if you too would like to call the show and be a whiny woman, 232-1542. 232-1542. Warren was doing
that was my Mitch McConnell.
If you'd like to do a whiny Mitch McConnell,
we're going to get to it, and I think it's a huge topic, the Affordable Care Act. Warren, one more question on the immigration situation. I like that. Immigration situation. Hey, Bernie, call our guy. We need to have that. We need to have that on the station.
Situation.
Love it. Okay,
sounds like a late night show, right?
Mark Levin was talking last night about wondering how we got to the point to where you really do have the judicial branch being the end-all and be-all of a lot of things, of where it is ultimately coming down to them, and where, according to the Constitution and the way you read the Federalist Papers, Congress should have the most power, and they have the least right now.
You get a gold star. That's exactly what my judge friend said yesterday. And she's a judge, and she said, where do the judges get all the power to overturn what the legislature, the people, the executive branch want? We're giving all this power to the judges. And if one thing this Trump election did was bring attention to the judiciary, above all else, I think that had a big impact.
But it also goes back a couple hundred years, I think, to Jay versus
I
Madison.
wasn't around then.
when it was one of the first Supreme Court cases that ruled that it was unconstitutional, whatever. But you got to go back to the 1950s. Remember that? The Warren Court? The Earl Warren Court?
Yep.
The one that the John Birch Society wanted him impeached and all that because the Warren Court became...
The conservative from California, Warren?
Totally activist and such stuff. But when you look at some of the things that passed the Warren Court, they were actually quite conservative.
Look at this.
All right, let's take a couple calls before we move on. 232-1542. Go ahead. You're on Katie on This Morning News and Wingin' It Wednesday. Go ahead with your comment.
Well, this whole... You guys brought up, you have to sign it before we can read it.
Or something like that.
I really wish it would have been a public forum where they said that in, so I could just said, why don't you guys just sign me a check from your personal bank account, and you'll see, you need to sign it so you can see what I'm writing.
How much it costs, yeah.
Just sign
Good
it
comment.
and hand it over.
Good comment.
Isn't that kind of
Thanks
what
for
the
your call.
IRS does?
Uh-huh.
That's a very good point, Warren. Very good point. 728 coming up, the Affordable Care Act. We'll take a bite out of this one. It's a biggie. It's a biggie. We're back after this. It's Wingin' It Wednesday, brought to you by Service Cadillac.
Y'all are no fun anymore. Yeah, exactly. Watch out for a traffic crash, Johnston at E. Broussard. That's Johnston at E. Broussard. Also, I-10 westbound, mile marker 103. That's at the Northwest Evangeline Thruway. That's I-10 westbound, mile marker 103 at the Evangeline Thruway. If you have an update on traffic, call us. Because, baby, we love telephone calls. 237 KTDY. That's your up-to-the-minute traffic report. I'm Bernadette Lee.
I have a little bit of a confession to make in that break. I was running out real quickly.
Uh-huh.
These guys went and got a beverage.
Uh-huh.
And it's not alcoholic, as far as I know.
Surprisingly, that's shocking.
But we had these big, beautiful 8-foot glass doors. Okay?
Yes.
And I pushed into it with my forehead before I turned the knob.
No.
Before.
And I thought
You
it
thought
shattered.
you were a goner.
I thought I was going
Yes.
through the window. So
I did that with my foot
we're
one day.
good.
God was protecting you, baby. That
made
angel
it.
was working hard.
We made it. All right, so last night on...
That boy almost went through that glass door.
It was like a Windex commercial, truthfully.
Yeah, right.
We talked a little bit earlier on the show. Last night there was a debate night in America.
Oh, yeah.
And it was Ted Cruz and Bernie Sanders. And the biggest issue that they were tackling, well, the topic was the Affordable Care Act, or just in general, health care in America. Obviously, they differ on so many issues, but surprisingly, looking at the clips this morning, there's a lot they do agree with. The extra paperwork, the extra oversight that you have. Like I said, fundamental differences, but there are some things where I could almost see them coming out, of the big mahogany doors and saying, we have a bill that we're both happy with. I just could see it happening.
You could?
I honestly, some of the things they agreed on, honestly. Now, it wouldn't be single payer, Carol. Let's be real. It
you
wouldn't
haven't
be
spent
single
enough
payer.
time around politicians.
But, where do we go with this? This was one of those things that we heard, time and time again. This is going to be taken care of day one. Day one, it's going to be repealed. We've moved from
Do you hear that rolling thunder out there, Rob?
to repair is where we are now.
You
Come
hear
on,
that
Carol.
rolling thunder?
What is that?
That's the thunder of the voters who put Trump in there because we're going to repeal and replace immediately, repeal and get, right? 40 times, something like that, the Republicans have passed the repeal of Obamacare, knowing full well it would go to the president's desk and get vetoed. Well, in 2015 or 16, Jim Jordan brought this out. He said, we passed a perfectly good bill to repeal and replace. It passed the House. It passed the Senate. Now we have a president. He said, all we have to do is bring that bill up. And apparently one of those is one that Tom Price, the new Health and Human Services Secretary, it has agreed with or has himself helped put together when he was in the Senate. At any rate, they've got bills there. If they do not listen to the people, and if they start weaseling out on this promise that they made that Trump got elected on, and even he said in that interview with O'Reilly, well, it may take a while, it may be into 2018. No, Mr. Trump, that's not what you said when you campaigned, and we trusted you to get in there and do what you said you would do, and you're doing it on a lot of things. Don't weasel out on this one. Don't get weak-kneed.
It was the biggest one, I think.
It was, well...
among the biggest.
3, immigration, jobs, and this thing. Okay. This abomination. So they have the bills lined up. Now they have the president. There is no reason for them to delay, and I'm sure Warren is going to nail it again.
Warren, what about
Warren's going to nail it again.
Do you know anything about Senator Bill Cassidy's plan? Did you hear us talk to him?
He's the number one person to call.
Yeah,
you look in the dictionary under weasel, his picture is there.
Oh, my God. There is something else in that coffee, I think. Warren, what are your thoughts on this?
No, I know nothing about Senator Bill Cassidy's plan. All I know is Senator Bill Cassidy thought Ronald Reagan was the worst thing that ever happened to the United States of America, and that we encouraged everybody to vote for Michael Dukakis. Enough said. Don't try to find out about this thing. So I called my friend Mitch McConnell yesterday, and I said, Mitch, what are we going to do about this?
Oh, boy, here it comes. Here it comes.
Oh, behave.
Mitch said something to him. Well, first of all, Donald Trump said that at one time during the campaign, he favored single payer system in health care, and so we don't know if we got the votes to do it or not, and that the American people, some of them like it, some of them don't, so we're going to have to find out if we do have a consensus in the Senate. Now, I know my colleagues in Kentucky, some of them in part of Kentucky, well, they're hurting. Other parts of Kentucky, where the horses run well and the bourbon flows, they're not hurting. So, well, we're going to get something done. One way or the other, we're going to get something done.
It's like he's sitting right here in the studio with us.
And I say, well,
Mitch McConnell, he's here.
Yes.
I say, well, Mitch, you didn't really tell me anything. He says, well, what I've been doing my whole life.
Yeah. It's a...
But look, the reality of it is, and I agree with what a lot of the other people have said, Republicans have had 8 years to come up with something. Carol said they have come up with one. So good. Bring it out there and get the show on the road. And
y'all talk to Bill Cassidy.
And it's just like, it's like we're doing with these cabinet nominations. Put them through, get the job done, no more playing around, no more kicking the can down the road.
Who was that politician that used to say no more pussyfooting around? Was it George Wallace? Something like that.
Wow.
When I saw Cassidy come out and pair it with Susan Collins, the Cassidy Collins bill, if you like it, like California might like it. They can do what they, we had to swallow this thing for 8 years now. And it has been a disaster, and it's continuing to be a disaster.
So
and if there's any Democrat that is thinking rationally, they're going to know that if this thing goes at one more year, the whole thing is going to crash and burn. It's going to be on their butts.
Yeah, because that was
now
the big
they
thing.
want
If
to
they
transfer
want
it to Trump.
Yeah, California. I got to say, California is where Dr. Cassidy was living and working when he wrote the letters to the editor about trashing Ronald Reagan and how horrible he was and how devastating.
Truly.
And how nice
Warren,
Michael
we learn
Dukakis
something new
was.
from you every day.
It's something in the water there, I think. Can't blame him 100%, right?
And I brought that up to him to his face at a meeting.
And? What do you have to say?
Well,
That sounds about right.
who said that if you're not liberal in your youth, you have no heart? If you're not conservative in your
Let's go.
old age,
Thank you. We got
what he had to say.
We got special Mitch McConnell and special
Well, I mean,
Bill
if
Cassidy.
people really want to tell, they can call Senator Cassidy's office and let him know how they feel about his weaseling out on this Obamacare situation.
232-1542. How do y'all feel about the weaseling? Call the show. Let's go to line 1 right now. You're on Wingin' It Wednesday. Go ahead with your comments.
Good morning, Ms. Carroll, Mr. Warren. You guys hit the nail on the head when it comes to Bill Cassidy. He's supposed to be a Republican and pro-life, but the bill he is submitting to replace Obamacare with supports taxpayer-funded abortion. So basically that tells me he believes in abortion.
It's keeping the funding in there for Planned Parenthood?
Oh, okay.
I wanted to ask.
He wanted
Okay,
to
let's
ask.
go- let's
I haven't read the whole
Let's ask that
thing.
question. Hello, you're next. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, it's still driving me nuts that we call it the Affordable Care Act, an insurance deal. But let's just do it this way. Everybody can afford insurance, buy insurance, and you go where you want to. And everybody who can't afford it can go to charity like they used to. Call it what it is. And then they can go to a hospital like the veterans go to. That's the way they deal with it. That's the veterans is a good illustration of government-run health care.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, excellent point.
I have so many people working for me over the years that would not even pay $1 a day for their insurance. They can't afford it. They wouldn't pay $1 a day, but yes, they could smoke and drink all they want to do. This thing leads to socialism.
Yeah, baby. And I love those. I love those special nails they get too with their EBT cards.
Where that man live? South Louisiana?
South of I-10. Thank you for your comment. Hey, let's take one more call before the break. All right. Go ahead. You're on Wingin' It Wednesday. Go ahead with your comment.
Yeah. I just wanted to say that I'm 66 years old. And back in 1963, when I was in school, young, I've heard Khrushchev. He was
banging his shoe. Yeah, he was banging his shoe on the podium.
Hello?
He was banging his shoe on the podium at the UN saying he's going to bury us?
No, No, ma'am. He said one thing. He said he will destroy the United States without a shot being fired.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate
That
it.
was part of that same speech. But one thing I do think on Obamacare, one thing I do think that Ted Cruz scored a real hit on was bringing out the fact that the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid have already put out the statistics. People on Medicaid, which is where they're forcing people to go with this whole thing, have much worse outcomes. They die at a much higher rate. I mean, they're not getting good medical care, and so many doctors will not take Medicare and Medicaid patients. Well,
right.
They just can't.
We'll have to leave that.
Reimbursed.
Let's leave that topic here. Get in a quick break. We'll come back. We have a new Secretary of Education, and not everyone's happy about it. What's new? It's Wednesday.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Wingin' Wednesday, February 8th. Brought to you by our friends over at Service Cadillac, 1212 Ambassador Caffrey. Look, I got
every
sucked
kind
in.
of Cadillac that you want.
Let me tell you.
Every kind. Get the Rob.
We have talked about the genetic defect that I have with cars.
Mm-hmm. But then you found your
But
true
then
love.
I found my true love over at Service Cadillac, and it was the best experience I've ever had buying a car,
and
truthfully.
it works for me, too, because every time we go to lunch, guess who gets to sit in the front seat?
Yeah, Bernie never wants to drive. I don't know why that is.
Because I
and
look
then
over
sometimes
at you
she
and
makes
I'm
me
like,
wear...
James?
Yeah, sometimes she makes me wear a hat and pull up to the front of restaurants and let her out. She even wants to sit in the back seat sometimes.
You're driving Miss Bernie, honey.
Driving Miss Bernie. Service Cadillac,
yes.
1212 Ambassador, the largest selection, definitely in South Louisiana, and they've got something for you. Every price range, every trim, every budget.
Every single color, even if you want.
Go see our friend Dean over there. He'll take care of you.
They've got all kinds of great adaptive different things that they can do.
You know, I tried for the first time.
Yeah.
You know, we do breakfast downtown on Sundays. If you ever want an autograph, come find me down there.
I could go and get your autograph there, because normally he doesn't speak to me here, but no.
I did the.
Give him a free.
I did. I'm a Dwyer's guy.
He is. He's a Dwyer's boy.
So I like to press the adaptive parallel park.
Yes.
I never thought I would ever trust the car to not like ram into another car.
I know, isn't it
but
amazing?
You know what? You can press it and just close your eyes and just sit there and hope for the best. Maybe root for your insurance card just in case. But it always works.
Absolutely amazing.
It always works.
Wait, it's one of those that stops before it hits something?
It sure stops before it hits something. I'll tell you, the weirdest, I'll say it's a sensation to not get too deep, is when someone walks in front of your car, the seat of your seat vibrates.
Yes. Yes.
Ooh.
So,
it's luxury that Rob
I don't know.
and a lot
That
of other people want.
Rob,
be careful now.
You have Sarah walk in front of your car all the time.
I park near curbs.
That's right. Cadillac and Service.
742.com,
people. You too can have a vibrating seat.
After this. Stay with us, guys.
Right now, 71 degrees here at the KPL studios. Today and today only. Sherry's Berries has another great offer for you. If you use the KPL code, you can get freshly dipped strawberries from Sherry's Berries and a dozen assorted roses for Valentine's Day, $39.99 plus shipping. So you get these gorgeous flowers and you get the delicious berries covered in chocolate. All you need is the code, and the code, my code, is KPEL, and it matters. You put it in the upper right-hand corner where the little microphone is. You put the KPEL code, and then you get the Sherry's Berries and the 12 roses, all for just $39.99 plus shipping. Do not be that guy that doesn't get something for Valentine's Day.
Don't get in trouble this year.
Don't get in the doghouse. Valentine's Day is right around the corner. It's, oh my gosh, when is it? Soon. Wait.
Yeah, we're 6 days away.
Yeah.
Next Tuesday.
It's already coming up. Okay, order today. This is the only day they're going to do the one-day deal for this, and it's the only way to get it. Go to berries.com. It's berries.com, berries.com. I'm going to give it to you one more time, berries.com. Click on the microphone in the top right-hand corner. Put in KPEL, that's my code, and then you'll get the deal. It expires at midnight. So why don't you just do it right now, and then, then you won't have anything to worry about.
7:47, Winging It Wednesday. We're back for our final segment. Warren, we'll quickly touch on the Betsy DeVos confirmation. What you think about that?
I thought it was the one of the highlights of my political involvement.
Yes.
That, finally, I said, here we've got a Republican group who've got the guts to do what they have said all the way along that they would do. Finally, we have a president who got elected and who went to Washington with his checklist and says, 1, sign this, 2, do this, 3, do this, 4, do this, right down the line. The things that I hear, all these people hollering about Betsy DeVos and how horrible she's going to be and all this, that, and other. Two of my Facebook people are in or have been in higher education, and they put all these flaming things on there about how horrible this is. So I'm going to just break down and finally do it. And I'm going to say, instead of telling all the bad things about what she's going to do, why don't all of you people out there tell us what your answer is to the public education crisis? And it is a crisis. Mm-hmm. Here we got somebody that's going in there thinking out of the box. This man that I knew, he was a judge, and he said his grandfather used to have a thing in his office that said, if you're not offering a solution to the problem, it's just bitching. And that's what I see about all of these people who sit there and all they do is tell you what the problem is or what the problem is going to be, but they never come up there and say, look, this is what I think we need to do to move forward. Has one time any of them said anything about the education and the outcome of those children who are going to school?
Yep.
And it's not like we've had a perfect situation and a gleaming education system over the last 8 years, so this person's going to mess it up. It's just like every other situation we have. It can only get better, you'd think.
Well, as the government...
I just go back to about that guy said about the 1960s or whatever. When the federal government really got involved in education.
Exactly.
If you look at just about every time they pour more money into it, quality goes down. And every time they come out with one of these new programs, when they came out with the modern math, when they came out with whole language, and then they came out with a common core, when they came out with all of this stuff, what happened? Basically, the quality went down. And they come in with all these new methods of teaching, and these people go out there to teach the teachers how to teach, and I think what happens is that they just sort of throttle back.
Their big complaint about charters and vouchers and all that is that, it takes money away from the public school system because the dollars go to the student, wherever the student goes. Well, yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. The dollars go with the students. Why? Because the dollars came from the students' parents, and the parents have a right to demand a little bit of accountability, which is what they're getting a smidgen with charter schools. They get it a lot more when you have vouchers and real school competition. But if you look at every part, at every chunk of that, you look at the biggest chunk of that education dollar, where's it going? It's going for things that don't really go into the classroom. I mean, it's going for administrative costs. It's going for pension funds. The pension funds are just eating the big cities alive. And something's got to change there. Yeah. And that would be a great thing for Trump to do in his second term, right, Warren? But I mean, really, you look at the test scores. Homeschoolers always score the highest.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
And they don't have any of the facilities or all the bricks and mortar and all the bells and whistles. They might have computers.
Yeah. The one thing that changed my mind, a couple of years ago, there was a story on CBS Sunday Morning about one-room schoolhouses.
Yes, exactly.
And it's they're very popular, especially in rural parts of the area. Several of them still exist. Well, they profiled one specific one where she has about 20 students. It's one teacher.
I saw that.
And everyone in there tests like 3 or 4 grades higher. Because guess what? You have one grade. You have 7th graders who are learning in the same room as a senior. And so they have their test scores are astronomical.
That's happening all over the country,
and I think a lot of people don't realize.
It's breaking down to the one-room schoolhouse again because the parents are sick and tired of the indoctrination that is going on in the schools that passes for education, and it is not. And you were talking about that wage gap. We wanted to get something
the wage
yesterday.
Gap from yesterday.
Okay, well, the study that I cited before was done in 2009 by the Department of Labor. And what they actually said, the raw wage gap continues to be used, this is a quote directly from the site, in misleading ways to advance public policy agendas without fully explaining the reasons behind the gap. And so it's, women are more likely to choose different occupations, to maybe value flex time and other benefits over raw wage. I mean, and so that's where you get that gap in there. It's not 77 cents, but because you have to account for all these other factors. When you do that, according to them, it's more like a 7% wage gap, not a 23 cent wage gap. Even the American Association of University Women, they studied a whole bunch of different variables, and they pointed out the fact that, the types of job pursued, women are hesitant. And here's the other thing. By training and by cultural indoctrination, women don't negotiate the way men do. They just don't. Well, some do, Warren. But I mean, most women, if they go into a job they're not negotiating.
It's always seemed that
this is why I always recommended to young women to go into sales, because you can set your own agenda. Mm-hmm. You can, determine your own salary. And by the way, on the converse side, they found that single, childless women in their 20s, without children, in urban settings, earn more than men. Wow. In Atlanta, the women earn 21% more than their male peers in that particular demographic, and 12% more in Los Angeles. So, I mean, there are reasons all over the place. It's strictly, as I emailed and texted Bernie, what this really comes down to is more government control of our lives.
Yeah.
The contract between employer and employee keeps getting muddled by all of this
and
stuff.
The only way that you actually are ever going to get a true percentage like that is if you look at the same company, exact same job.
And that's very rare.
And that's very rare, because what company is going to give up all that data? I mean,
absolutely.
And
I want to be, quite frankly, and I've said it before, I said it yesterday, I want to be paid at what my level of skill is.
Right.
Okay, and my negotiation with my employer.
And in a way, this sort of takes that ability away from the employer and away from you to negotiate what that value is.
Why should I be paid less if I have more skills?
Exactly.
Even if we're doing the same kind of job.
It's the same thing that Warren said, and we have said this many times. The more involvement by government, the less effective the whole situation, or the less satisfying it's going to be, because you have government doing a one-size-fits-all, and that's not the way the free market is supposed to work.
Warren, you want to wrap this one up for us?
And we'll go back on talking about the education thing. We had a wonderful president one time who proposed a deal that said that he wanted the people to be able to just write a percentage of their income tax that they were sending to Washington, to write it to their local school system, instead of sending that money to Washington. And a percentage, not the whole thing, but it's a percentage. Instead of sending the money to Washington, it gets muddled around through there a little bit. Then it gets sent back to the state. Then they take their share of it. Then it goes back to the county. They take their share of it. He said, why not just let it stay at the local level where it's supposed to be? And so, that's what I think. Do I have just a couple of minutes?
Yeah, we got about a minute. Go ahead.
One thing I want to point out is that I was looking at the other day. We were talking about the John Birch Society not too long ago, and I watched this thing on. I sent the link out to y'all. Nobody watched it, of course, but it was about them. It was about them talking about the Soviet Union here in the 1960s, influencing the Vietnam War, anti-war people, and also the civil rights riots and all this, that, and other. So then I watched this thing about Rachel Maddow, where she was talking about them and talking about how stupid they are and what planet did they come from to actually think that the Soviet Union was in here trying to influence our politics and our society and on and on. She just raved about it. So I'm saying, what is the difference? What is the difference? That's what all the Democrats were saying back then. Are you stupid for saying that the Russians were over here doing something? So now the Democrats are saying what? The Russians stole the elections. The Russians are in here doing this. The Russians did that to us. Next thing you're going to know, they said the Russians tapped into the scoreboards in the Super Bowl.
Well,
but Putin is a killer.
He could have made it that interesting. We'll have to leave it right there. Wingin' Wednesday, every Wednesday morning at 7 o'clock, brought to you by our friends over at Service Cadillac. Hey, and a big thing coming up, too. Monday afternoon, 2 o'clock.
Monday.
The Ross Report.
Yes,
right here
indeed.
on KPEL.
Yes, indeed. Stay tuned.
Warren Caudle will be the biggest character you'll have on there.
Yeah, you better call her show. I'm just
7:57
I believe
now.
he probably will.
Yeah.
Stay with us.